The restaurant lights glowed warm and golden, laughter echoing across the marble walls as couples clinked glasses and servers rushed between tables carrying trays of wine and plates of fine meals. Yet, at one small corner table, a young woman sat with her hands folded tightly in her lap, staring at a glass of water as though it was the only thing she could afford in the world. Her date, a man in a sharp blazer, leaned back in his chair with a smug smile, scrolling on his phone, making no effort to even look at her. Around them, everything sparkled, polished cutlery, expensive decor, and plates filled with rich flavors. But in front of her, there was nothing but that plain, untouched glass of water. And at another table, just a few steps away, a man dressed in a dark tailored suit watched quietly, his eyes narrowing with curiosity and a touch of sadness. He was a millionaire, known to many for his success, but tonight, he felt lonelier than he ever had before. Watching the girl sip her water, he didn't know why, but his heart stirred. Something inside him whispered, this moment was not ordinary, and perhaps, neither was she. Before we dive deeper into this heart-touching journey, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of unexpected encounters that change lives, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Stories. Your support helps us spread more stories that touch hearts around the world. Her name was Anna. She was 24, a college graduate who had once dreamed of working in design and fashion, but life had not been kind to her. After her father's sudden death and her mother's long illness, bills piled up until she was buried under their weight. She worked 2 part-time jobs, waiting tables in the morning and managing a small thrift store in the evenings, but no matter how hard she worked, the debts and the medical expenses seemed endless. Her friends often told her to take time for herself, to go out, to live a little, but how could she when she barely had money to eat? Tonight, however, she had forced herself to meet someone, a man named Kyle whom she had met through a coworker. She didn't know him well, but she thought maybe, just maybe, this could be a step towards something better. Yet sitting there, with him glued to his phone and no interest in even offering to order food for her, Anna felt her chest tighten with disappointment. She had glanced at the menu when she arrived, her stomach growling at the sight of pasta and warm bread, but the prices made her heart sink. She couldn't afford even a simple plate. So when the waiter asked what she would like, she smiled faintly and whispered, "Just water, please." At the next table, the millionaire, his name was James, couldn't take his eyes off her. He had come to this restaurant countless times, usually with business partners or acquaintances who laughed too loudly and bragged too much. Tonight, he had come alone, not because he wanted to, but because loneliness had become his shadow. He had money, cars, and a house so large that his footsteps echoed in its emptiness. But he didn't have family. His parents had died long ago, his marriage had crumbled, and in his pursuit of success, he had burned bridges with the few people who had once cared. Now, he often found himself sitting alone, pretending he was content, while in truth, he longed for something money couldn't buy: connection, sincerity, love. Watching Anna, he noticed the way her shoulders hunched slightly, the way she stirred her water without drinking it, the way her date ignored her as though she were invisible. Something about her pain mirrored his own, and he couldn't look away. As the evening dragged on, Kyle finally stood up, excused himself for an urgent call, and left her sitting alone at the table. Minutes passed. Then half an hour. He didn't return. At first, Anna tried to look calm, pretending she was fine, but slowly her hands began to shake. She realized he wasn't coming back, that he had left her there, humiliated, with nothing but a glass of water in front of her. Tears burned her eyes, but she blinked them away, determined not to cry in public. She thought of leaving quietly, maybe slipping out before anyone noticed, but just then, James rose from his seat. He walked over and gently placed a menu in front of her. Anna looked up, startled, meeting a pair of kind eyes that seemed to hold both strength and sorrow. James spoke softly, but with firmness in his tone, telling her that no one should ever sit in a restaurant with only water while the world around them feasted. He gestured for the waiter, ordering not one, but several dishes. The warm bread she had glanced at, the pasta she had secretly craved, and a dessert she never would have dared to consider. Anna's lips parted in protest, but James only smiled, assuring her that tonight she deserved more than silence, more than abandonment, more than hunger. When the food arrived, Anna's resolve broke. She picked up a piece of bread, tasted it, and her eyes welled with tears. It wasn't just the food, it was the kindness. For so long, she had carried her burdens alone, hiding her struggles from the world, pretending to be strong. And here was a stranger who saw her pain without her saying a word. She whispered her thanks, her voice trembling, and James simply nodded, as though he needed no gratitude. The hours that followed unfolded like a quiet miracle. They spoke, not about wealth or success, not about pity or debt, but about life. Anna told him about her mother, about her father's laughter she still missed, about her dreams of design. James listened with a tenderness that surprised even him. And when he shared his own story, of loneliness, of mistakes, of nights spent staring at ceilings in empty rooms, Anna listened with the same care. It felt as though two broken souls had found each other in the middle of a crowded restaurant, and for the first time in a long time, both felt seen. Days turned into weeks, and that night became the beginning of something neither had expected. James began visiting the thrift store where Anna worked, bringing coffee, sometimes just standing by to talk. He never flaunted his wealth, never tried to impress her with extravagance. Instead, he offered presence, patience, and kindness, the very things he had longed for himself. Anna, in turn, brought warmth into his life. She laughed at his old stories, teased him about his serious expressions, and reminded him what it felt like to be alive. Slowly, the walls around his heart began to crumble, and the weight on her shoulders began to lighten. But the world wasn't kind immediately. People whispered when they saw them together, judging, assuming she was only after his money, mocking the difference between them. Anna cried sometimes, wondering if she was a burden, wondering if he deserved someone better. But James would take her hand and remind her of that night, that she had ordered only water, that he had seen her then, and that nothing could erase the purity of that moment. She wasn't with him for what he had, she was with him for who he was. And he loved her not because she needed saving, but because she had saved him, too, from loneliness, from emptiness, from a life without love. Months later, in the same restaurant where it all began, James invited her back. The staff remembered them, whispers filling the air as they sat at the same table. This time, the table overflowed with food, not because Anna couldn't afford it, but because James wanted to remind her of how far they had come. And when dessert arrived, he placed a small velvet box in front of her. Anna's hands trembled as she opened it, finding a simple ring, not flashy, not extravagant, but filled with meaning. With tears in his eyes, James told her that the night she ordered only water had been the night he had found the one thing his wealth could never buy, a reason to believe in love again. Anna wept as she said yes, the restaurant around them erupting in applause. And in that moment, surrounded by strangers who had once looked at her with pity, she felt the world shift. She wasn't the girl with only water anymore. She was the woman who had found love when she least expected it, who had taught a lonely millionaire that kindness and sincerity mattered more than fortune. Dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness has the power to change lives in the most unexpected ways, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Stories. Your engagement helps us continue bringing real and emotional stories to light. And before this story ends, we have a special request for you. Please comment below and tell us, what was one small act of kindness you once received that changed your life, even if just for a day? We would love to read your experiences. As James and Anna walked out of that restaurant hand in hand, the world seemed brighter, not because of wealth, but because of love, kindness, and the reminder that sometimes, the smallest moments, like ordering only water, can lead to the most life-changing stories of all.